Okay, so can we discuss Wendy Williams? I know some of you don't like when I talk about pop culture related things or current events on this channel, uh, but I find this so fascinating. This conversation around Wendy and her demise that is being documented everywhere I go. Like, it's on the news, it's on social media. She has a new Lifetime documentary about this, about her life and about what's happening with her health. So I want to briefly talk about it, if nothing else, to examine the parts of it that for me are like the takeaways that are really interesting. So unless you've been living under a rock, you know Wendy Williams as, well, maybe people outside the US don't know who Wendy Williams is. You tell me if you're not in the US, if you don't know who she is. If you're in the US, I'm assuming you know of Wendy Williams. Wendy Williams is the famed television talk show host. She had a talk show for at least 10 years, which, by the way, in the talk show world, that's considered incredibly unusual. Most talk shows fail within the first season. I guess you could probably say that about any show, period. There's a lot of shows that don't even make it past the pilot. But I think talk shows are notoriously really difficult to have succeed because it requires a live, it's a live taping, it's a live audience, live viewers as well, right? And it's like, who's around at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. It's like housewives, people potentially getting ready for work, people who work from home, I guess, but it's a limited audience. So I think that's why shows like Ellen, Rosie O'Donnell, right? Like, there really aren't that many daytime or morning talk shows that have really persevered. And so Wendy is kind of like the last of these talk show legends, we can say. And I predict she will be the last one, just because now things have changed so much with streaming culture. I just don't see a talk show starting from scratch nowadays and really taking off and being on for 10 plus years. Anyway, that's just my opinion. But people from the tri-state area, New York City in particular, they know Wendy Williams as a radio personality first. And her whole thing, which she then brought into her talk show, was kind of like this Howard Stern-esque personality of talking shit about celebrities, rehashing celebrity gossip, but then getting so much attention from it and so many listeners, just like Howard Stern, that then these celebrities would feel compelled to come to the show, A, to get an audience, but also to clarify any rumors. And, you know, it's almost like the commentary becomes bigger than the original story, and so then they want to be a part of that, right? So legendary career with Wendy, and at the top of her game, viewers started realizing, this was years ago, but slowly viewers would realize like something feels off with her. Like, she has these moments when she's talking where there's like a mental disconnect. Is it a health issue? Is she on something? People are still talking about this. The conversation is still going on of like what exactly is happening. Hence this new Lifetime documentary kind of analyzing this. And it would seem that it's a mixture of things at once. It's a return to addiction for her, allegedly. And also declining mental health. And they're now saying that she has basically dementia. Why am I talking about all this? Why do I find it fascinating? There's all kinds of people all the time who have dementia. I have people in my own family who have experienced dementia. I'm sure you have as well. There's a few different things for me. There's like 3 or 4 things that I think are really interesting here. First, if you've ever watched Wendy, she was sharp. Great speaker. Yeah, the stuff she was talking about was superficial celebrity gossip, but I think there's a talent in people who talk about these superficial things in a really entertaining, juicy way, but also in a very communicative, clear way. She was a great speaker. She actually started out before radio, wanting to be a news anchor. So there's a kind of training and personality required to do that, right? You have to be articulate. You have to know how to communicate to a wide variety of people and so on. So for me, what's interesting is that in her prime, she was such a good speaker and so quick-witted that it's interesting to me that somebody could go from that to this other extreme of barely being able to string words along and having dementia. I guess in my mind, I just always assume that somebody who gets Alzheimer's or dementia, that it's like a very gradual thing that even maybe when they're younger, you see that they trip up on their words. And clearly that's wrong, because here's an example of somebody who was so sharp and so clear with her words, such a great orator, and then to slip into this like other extreme, I guess for me, my reaction is that it's like really scary to think how quickly, because of your brain function, because of something with your health, how quickly you can change to becoming somebody you've never been. But I guess you could say that about anything, right? You could say that about cancer. You could say that about a heart attack. Like, I think it's like as human beings, we want to feel in control of our lives, our health, and you realize that there are these certain things that can just happen biologically, chemically, and there's no warning. There's no, with her, it is a little bit different because addiction has most certainly not helped. She has admitted that she was a cocaine addict, I think in her 20s, but then her whole drama with her ex-husband, they say, led her back into addiction. And that in itself is another thing that I find so interesting about this, that somebody can be on top of the world, right? This huge career, again, in a space that's very difficult to succeed in. She must have made millions from it. I mean, she must have made so much money, huge career, all of this. And then for it to just fall apart like this, just like her health, right? And it all is connected, right? Obviously, the show wouldn't have failed totally if it wasn't for her health declining and all these like mysteries around what's happening with her. Is she using something, a substance? But just to think like somebody can reach that level of success and then one thing can set it off, whether it's a health issue or whether it's a personal issue. Basically, her ex-husband, if you don't know, this guy, not only did he cheat on her, but he had a baby with his mistress who he was shacking up with in a house like 10 minutes away. So basically this thing that they built as a team, I guess he was her manager, right? But it's off of her back, Wendy Williams, right? She's the talent. He's just the guy doing the, driving her to and fro and in the room for these executive meetings or whatever. But it's all revolving around Wendy, right? The audacity of this man, that he got a chick pregnant and she in a house that he paid for with the money from what the Wendy Williams career has built. So obviously this is gonna totally mess with somebody's head, as it did with Wendy, and all of these things together just created this snowball effect where she now is out of it. Like when you see her today, she doesn't look healthy, and you can tell there's a medical issue, but that there's things that probably also led to that accelerated that, right? In her personal life, and again, addiction. It's a really sad story, and it goes to show you how quickly somebody's life can change and take a turn for the worse. All the money in the world, all the fame, this career high, none of it really matters if you're one, hair away from this avalanche of your whole life falling apart. Another thing I think is really interesting about this is that a lot of people are like, this is her karma. She's been terrible to these celebrities. She's talked about other people's health issues, other people's marital affairs. She's broadcast all of this. This is her karma. Now her life is falling apart in front of the world. And I find it so interesting that people could feel entitled to projecting that kind of cruelty on someone because of how cruel that person was. Like, isn't that hypocritical? Like, you're saying, well, that's her karma. People commenting and people getting interviewed saying that's her karma. But you're now doing the same thing, are you not? That you're kind of like pointing at her the way that she was pointing at those celebrities. Also, I don't think that's actually how it works. Like, how many people do you know who have had health issues, really serious health issues, who have had, life-altering illnesses? Are we just gonna say it's always because of karma that people get sick? Like, I think it's a very slippery slope and a dangerous mindset to have, and a disappointing mindset that so many people are saying this, particularly on social media. And by the way, even if she was the most cruel person in the world and people feel she deserves it, whatever that means, she's not just one person, right? She has a son, she has family. She had a whole team of people whose jobs depended on her showing up to work, right? So I just find people really glib and I don't know what the word is, short-sighted in these kinds of reactions. But just like any other really big celebrity story that, you know, a demise of somebody, like when Whitney Houston died, right? And her battle with addiction, Michael Jackson, Anna Nicole Smith. It's really interesting not just to see that demise from a distance, but how people react to the demise. All the feedback, all the chatter. And so I've been kind of watching this from a distance and just fascinated by the whole evolution of it. The sadness of how quickly she has fallen apart, and then just the hype around it and people's obsession with it and what people say about it. Of course, as always, I want to know what you think. Please let me know in the comments your take on all of this. See you next time.